These are 8 questions to help you think about whether now or in the near future might be the right time for you to retire. And the first question is, what would you do if you had no fear? If you had 100% certainty that you were going to succeed, that you didn't have to worry about running out of money, that the transition would go well, and you would enjoy the next phase of your life, what would you do? Would that change? Would that make it easier for you to think about retirement? Because too often, fear holds us back. I can tell you as a financial advisor for over 20 years, that once you're through the transition, you've left work, you've transitioned to the new side, you're on the retirement side, you know what your new purpose is. Once you've made that transition, the vast majority of people are glad that they chose to retire when they did, and maybe wish that they had retired a little bit sooner. So that's the first question. The next question is, imagine that you've lost your health, and I'm assuming that you're healthy now and you can pretty much be active and do the things that you'd like to be able to do, the things that are on your retirement list. I want you to think about what would happen if you lost your health. And let me share a story to kind of make that more visceral. You know, when we're driving down the road and we hear an ambulance in the back, you know, we look in our rear view mirror and we see the flashing lights. We all pull over in order to let that ambulance get to where it needs to go as soon as possible. And we wish the best for who's ever, you know, injured or sick in the back of that ambulance. Well, at some point, we're likely all going to be that person in the back of the ambulance, going to the hospital and not knowing, you know, is this it? Are they going to be able to save me? And if you're in that moment, what will be the things that you regret, right? There'll be things that we're super glad that we did. There's going to be things that we're grateful for, right? The relationships that we've had, the experiences, the adventures, our friends. But there's also going to be some things that we're regretting. Gee, if this is it, you know, I really wish I'd been able to do some of these other things. So hopefully that moment's a long way off for all of us. But what would you regret if you were in the back of that ambulance thinking, okay, this could be it? Okay, the third one, and many people would say I should have led off with this one, but I disagree. And that is, of course, do you have enough money to retire? Right, and nothing what I'm sharing in my videos is retirement advice, but you know, there are some good rules of thumb when you're a decade away from retirement, 20 years away from retirement, 5 years away, right, that you can use to say, am I on track? Is it likely that I'm going to have enough money? Many of us have heard of the 4% rule developed by Bill Bengen in the middle of the 1990s that says that you can withdraw 4% of your money from your account each year over a 30-year period. Let's say you had $1 million just for easy math. 4% of that would be $40,000 a year. Not only can you take that out the first year, but you can index that for inflation each year, so it continues to feel like $40,000. So if you have $500,000, it would be $20,000. Now, importantly, Bill Bengen's work relies on a portfolio that is, excuse me, 60% exposed to stocks, and that's not an account for the people that are faint at heart. You're going to feel volatility. Sorry, I'm on this river walk here. It's a beautiful location, but apologize for the background noise and apologize for my cough. Okay. So there's things that you want to look at, but I do want to leave you with, or not leave, we're not ending here, we're only halfway through the list, but I want you to think about that 4% rule is a good rule of thumb, but when it comes to retirement, when you're getting closer, you don't want to rely on a rule of thumb. You want to have clarity and certainty, and that's why I think you should work with a financial advisor. You want to know whether you have enough money. All right, enough said for number 3. Number 4, are you at the stage of your life where it's no longer worth trading time, which is a limited resource for all of us, trading time for additional money? When we're in our 20s or our 30s, trading time for money, we have a lot of time in front of us, and most of us in our 20s and 30s, myself included, didn't have a lot of money. So that was a worthwhile trade-off. That made a lot of sense. But as we get older and we build up our retirement savings and we have less time in front of us, that trade-off becomes less likely that it makes sense for us. At some point, it no longer makes sense to trade time for money. And one thing to think about is there's always ways to make more money, but unfortunately, there is no way for us to make more time. So are we at the point where it no longer makes sense for us to trade time for money anymore? And while I say there's no way to increase the amount of time that we have, candidly, one way we can kind of cheat a little bit, and that is by staying as healthy as we can be. And so the next question is, how's your health? Does it look like you're in good health? You're doing what you can. You have the time to stay healthy. You're cooking healthy food. You're taking the time to grocery shop. Does it look like you have time to do that, or are you sacrificing your health because you just don't have time? You don't have time to go to the gym. You don't have time to grocery shop. You're eating out too much for convenience reasons. So the next question is, how's your health? And what do the genes look like in your family? For instance, in my case, my uncle on my father's side passed away when he was 56 years old of a heart attack. And my father had his first heart attack at 58. So I do what I can, but I also have to be realistic and say, I may not have as long as many people do have. So that's the next question. Question number 5, how's your health? Okay, number 6, do you have time for the relationships that are important in your life? Many of us have adult kids. Do we have time to spend time with them? If you have grandkids, are you able to be in their life the way that you want to be in their life? If you have aging parents, do you have time to be with them, realizing this could be the last few years for our aging parents? So do you have time to do those things, or are you sacrificing? Is work taking that away from you? And if you didn't have to work, that would give you more time for the relationships that mean the most important to you. And related to that, we all know this, but kids, even our adult children, spell love T-I-M-E. They don't spell love M-O-N-E-Y. And so while it would be nice to continue to work and maybe if we have a plan to leave our adult kids money, or people that we care about money, while it may be nice to save up additional money and leave more money behind and have a nicer cushion, at some point we all have to say enough is enough. And if that's something that you're struggling with, how much is enough? Your financial advisor is saying you have enough money, but maybe it doesn't feel that way. I encourage you to read the book Die with Zero. It's a really good book, and it talks about that money is really a way we store up the life energy that we use to create money so that we can use that life energy somewhere else. And you want to make sure you're using as much of that life energy as possible. Okay, number 7, do you have something to retire to? And this is really important, right? Many of us think about retiring away from our job, but what are we going to retire to? And I mentioned the book earlier, Die with Zero. There's another book by the author is Arthur Brooks called From Strength to Strength that talks about creating your next purpose in life. And if that's something that you've struggled with, that you're not sure that you've got what the next thing is going to be for you, I found that book to be helpful. I've had dozens of people tell me that they found it helpful, so I want to share that book with you as well. And for some of us, we don't know what that next thing is going to be, and we have to take that leap of faith related to that first question I asked, right? Which is, what would you do if you knew for sure you were going to succeed and you did not have fear? So for some of us, we've been running 100 miles an hour and we don't have that next thing. But it'd be a shame to not retire because we don't know what that next thing is. Oftentimes it takes time to figure that out. And that leads me into my next question, which is, how do you feel about your current job? Many of us have been doing what we do for a decade, 20 years, 30 years, and there may have been a time we were really passionate about it, and it brought a lot of joy to our life and brought a lot of meaning to our life, but maybe those days are behind us now. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you hate your job, right? But maybe you've lost your passion for it. And if you retired and gave yourself time to develop the next passion, that would give you the freedom and the excitement that comes with a new passion. Unfortunately for most of us, there's 4 phases we're all going to go through in retirement. The first phase is kind of feeling like vacation, or at least de-stressing, right? It just feels good not to have those responsibilities and that stress and having to wake up at 6 in the morning to be in the office at 8 a.m. and maybe missing some important events in the evening because something came up at work. It feels good. So that's kind of the relief phase. The second phase, unfortunately, is a feeling of lost. We've lost in many ways part of our identity. We've lost in many ways part of our sense of purpose. Many of us are going to lose some of our friends, our work friends. We spend 8 hours, 10 hours a day with our work friends, and we have proximity. We're in the same office, or we're jumping on Zoom calls with them. We often share a common mission together. There's this sense of brotherhood or sisterhood with your friends at work. And even with the best of intentions, unfortunately, it's likely we're going to lose many, if not most of those friends. Doesn't mean we won't keep in contact with them, but it does mean that we're going to have a different relationship. So there's this feeling of loss. We've lost our routine. We've lost some purpose. We've lost some friends, and that can be painful. And then the third phase is what I call the iterating phase, where we're trying new things. We're trying out new things. We're seeing what is our next thing. And we may have to try 2, 3, 4, 5 different things until we find our next thing. And as I said earlier, that takes time. And then the final phase, the fourth phase, is where we've made it. We've transitioned. We now know what our new purpose is. And it's at that point that most people say, you know what, I'm really glad that I retired when I did. And if you're struggling with that and thinking, I want more information. Azul, these 8 questions were good, but I want more. That's what this video is here. It's 5 reasons to retire as soon as you can. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in there. Bye-bye.